This is George Lexbacher on behalf of the Society for Mining, Metallurgy, and Exploration, and I'm here at the 2023 SME Annual Conference and Expo in Denver, Colorado on February 28, 2023 with Drew Meyer. Drew and I are both past presidents of SME, Drew in 2012 and me in 2008, and I'm here to get Drew's perspective on our industry and profession. This recording is part of AIME's Oral History Capture Program. So welcome, Drew.
I'm happy to be here and hope everything goes well.
You and I have had an opportunity to practice this over a bourbon a few weeks ago. So
a good way to start.
A good way to start, so we're well practiced. So Drew, tell me a little bit about where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is Chocolate Town, USA. We all love Hershey's chocolate. Very small town. And so you can't say we were in a very worldly position, even though Hershey chocolate is sold worldwide. I'm not doing a commercial for Hershey, but we love our Hershey's chocolate. And Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. Went to school with the people who owned the company. So, but anyway, that's where we started. And the interesting part of it for me is that a lot of we had several limestone quarries in the immediate area, as well as a lime producing quarry. So there was that mineral background that I was aware of, but can't say that I was really involved with it at all.
Interesting.
So
what did your parents do for a living?
My father worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad.
Okay.
And my mother worked a couple of different places, but with another candy company in the Hershey.
A competitor.
A competitor.
Oh.
But they made different types of chocolate. And I'm not even sure they didn't buy some of it, as did Reese's, which was an independent company and developed the peanut butter cup, but they bought all of their chocolate from Hershey. And I was fortunate enough to work in the quality control lab at the Hershey Chocolate Corporation, and was able to test the chocolate before it went out, had to test the beans when they came in, all of those kinds of things, which actually works into the story, I guess, of what I was doing as I grew up. The Hershey Chocolate Corporation was kind of such a dominant place. But one of the things they did was that when they tried to hire college students that were in the College of Chemistry, and you could work in the quality control lab to do that. That's what I started out going to Penn State for.
Chemistry.
Chemistry.
Okay.
Went to my orientation before I started the program, and the counselor that you talked to during the orientation said, "I see that you are going to go into the College of Chemistry." Said yes. Didn't know really what I wanted to do, but that seemed to fit my interests. She said, "Well, you know what? I don't think so." You actually are very good with the verbal skills, and still good on the technical side, but I think you would be unhappy being in a chemical lab as your profession. She said, "I was just looking back through the books of all of the different things that we have, and I found this course this program called Mineral Economics. she said, I've looked through it. It speaks very well to your verbal skills, and there's still an awful lot of the technical aspects. You'll get chemistry, you'll get mathematics, you'll get a lot of the mining engineering courses that you'll take in there. And this was a program that had been developed by the U.S. Bureau of Mines right after World War II. I thought about it for a while and decided, you know what? This really does have a lot of stuff in here that I kind of like. I graduated from high school when I was 17, and no 17-year-old, I think, or almost no 17-year-old has any idea what they want to do. So this was very attractive for me. And as a result, I became the first student that mineral economics had at Penn State, because all of the other students would find out about the program and go into the mineral economics program. So I was the first one to start the first day as a freshman in mineral economics, and then the first, of course, to graduate, and then the first to get a master's degree in mineral economics. So that's how I kind of got into the industry, that in a way that I never could have contemplated when I started.
That's a fascinating story. So these college counselors, it's amazing. So here you were on one path, and a college counselor who really didn't know you except what the paper said,
right,
turned your path.
Yeah, and there's one thing that because everything worked out so well and I enjoyed mineral economics so much, I've often regretted that I never could go back and tell her that, golly, I don't know how many students you've helped, but you sure helped me. That I know. And that I regret that I couldn't say that to her.
That's a fascinating story. So I can tell you, you and I aren't that different in age. So I showed up at Penn State, and you did that profile to figure out what you were suited to, which I'm sure she was looking at for you.
Yeah.
And looked at mine and told me I should be a farmer. And as I was going into engineering, and I said, no, I'm going to be an engineer. But my profile showed I would be better off a farmer. So maybe now hearing your story, maybe I should have went into farming. Maybe I'd be a highly successful farmer today.
Heaven forbid. I wouldn't be doing an interview then.
So out of curiosity, how come Hershey, since you weren't a chemistry major, Hershey still took you into the quality control program?
Yeah. Yeah, they did that because one of the CEOs decided that's what they were going to use as a criteria and support the Penn State chemistry curriculum by hiring students to come there for the summer.
So have you developed a lifetime love of chocolate because of that summer employment?
No. But what Hershey does have is all throughout the factory refrigerators that they have a man whose only job is to go around and keep the refrigerators full. You can have as much chocolate as you want, and you can carry it out in your belly, but no other way. So, and that was great for a young college kid. Why, man, eating chocolate all day. Chocolate bars and Reese's is just very good.
Very good, very good. So you mentioned that you did your undergraduate work, then you went back for your master's. What led you to do a master's?
I was in ROTC and commissioned as a second lieutenant when I graduated from my senior year. They indicated that the Army, that they had enough second lieutenants at that time, which was unusual. And so I said, well, how about give me another year and let me get my master's degree? And they said, okay, go for it. And then when I got my master's degree, I found out that there was an opportunity to go to work for Vulcan Materials Company because another PhD candidate was interviewing Vulcan Materials Company, which is an aggregate company. And he said, come on and interview. I said, yeah, but I only have 6 months. And he said, come interview anyway. Be good practice for you. So anyway, I went there, and the man who had come to interview said, or I said to him, now I can only promise you 6 months. That's all the military will give me. And then I've got to go on active duty. He says, oh my God, you're exactly what I want. He said, I'm short on staff because these men are in the National Guard and I'm short-staffed. They will be back in 6 months. So you're exactly what I want. Somebody who will come and work, fill a position, and because of your master's degree and everything, be productive right away. And that's how I got to work for Vulcan Materials Company and retired from there after 39 years of service.
So if you didn't have that service, if the Army said, well, we'll defer again, we could be talking, you could have went for your PhD and we could be talking to Dr. Drew Meyer.
Yes, that's quite possible, I guess. But second lieutenants rarely were in a high supply because it was during the Vietnam War. And second lieutenants kind of had a perilous type of position oftentimes.
Understood.
And therefore they didn't, it was unusual that happened.
Uh-huh. So what did you do? So you worked for Vulcan for these 6 months. So what did you do for Vulcan for those first 6 months?
I went into their market research department. Oh. And what they wanted was somebody who had the knowledge about the mineral industry. First of all, because that's the business they were in the quarrying business, but they were also taking a look at getting into the coal business. A lot of coal being mined in Alabama, and they were looking to see if they could expand into that. I brought some knowledge of that industry as well. Mm-hmm. And so one of the first things I did was to work on that acquisition, which never happened, but they did enough looking at it at that time.
So you mentioned Alabama. Here you were a Pennsylvania boy, and that's where they took you to, was Alabama, to do this work?
That's where it was.
That was your first exposure to the Deep South?
Yeah, with a little trepidation. This Yankee had to go south. But it was a delightful town, and we fit in very well very quickly.
Okay, so let me go back to 2 things. First, I wanted to ask you, why did you pick Penn State?
You know, that's really was an easy question for me. I guess I can say this.
They can always cut it out if they don't want it.
Hershey was a small town, and everybody seemed to want to know your business. And I didn't want everybody to know my business. So, I mean, I'd get reports, people from around town, oh, I saw Drew over here telling my mother this or something. No, I wasn't there. Yeah, but we saw your car. No, you didn't see my car. I had a Nash Rambler, a red Nash Rambler convertible.
That fits your personality, Drew. Yeah. I just want to mention that, but go
And
ahead.
so it was one of those things that I wanted to go to a big college, a big university, where I didn't have to worry about anybody knowing me. And so many of my classmates wanted to go small because they didn't want to be a number. I wanted to be a number. So that worked out exceedingly well. I was stupid enough at that time, and lucky, That's the only place I applied to. Nowadays, people seem to apply to a half a dozen.
If not a dozen.
That's right.
Yes.
So they accepted me, and I graduated from there. And they're big. They had a very good reputation, and I got everything that I needed out of it.
One of the few mineral economics programs in the whole U.S. at the time. So
That's
you,
right.
if you hadn't have went there,
I never would have gotten there.
never would have gotten into mineral.
Yeah. History is, or I mean, those types of things happen, and you don't really see it at the time.
Right. So you signed up for ROTC just out of curiosity. Why did you, knowing the Vietnam War, what was happening in Vietnam, why did you elect to sign up for ROTC when you went into college?
Well, at Penn State, the first 2 years were mandatory. All males had to be in ROTC.
At that time?
At that time.
Wow. I'm not that far behind you, and I wasn't aware of that. So
Yeah.
it was a mandatory thing. Wow.
Mandatory.
Okay.
So at the end of that, you had the opportunity to ask to stay in, and you would be commissioned as a second lieutenant when you graduated. In fact, you graduate at Penn State in your Army uniform and are commissioned at the same time you receive the degree. I just figured that I had the possibility of going to Vietnam, and I'd rather go as an officer than as an enlisted man. So that's why I stayed in.
So that's interesting because you graduated from with your BS in what year?
In 65.
65. Well, I was a little,
Master's in 66.
so I was a little bit behind you because I was 73, but I wasn't even aware that Penn State had that ROTC requirement.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. It's I just learned something about my own school where I went as well. Looking back on this, you were in a unique program in the U.S. because the Bureau of Mines had helped set it up. Were there any professors there that stand out in your mind that were your mentors or people that really gave you direction and gave you that path in MinEc?
Oh my. There were a number. Dean Ridge was there. He was Dean of Mineral Economics at the time. As part of when I went for my master's degree, I was one of my, I got a, what do they call it? They basically paid my tuition, and
They gave you an internship.
Internship,
Yep,
yeah.
within the department. Yep.
And so I, along with another one of the students, master's students, we used to proofread his books on economic geology. I'm not sure how much of it I understood, but it was a very interesting process to sit there. We'd read to each other so that we could both look at what the sentences were and all of that, make sure that it was coming out right. We weren't critiquing his science at all. We were nothing more than trying to make sure that there was no obvious types of mistakes.
So was a thesis required in the master's program? Was a thesis required? Did you have to write a thesis for your master's?
I did.
So out of curiosity, Drew, since you've never told me this before, what was the title of your master's thesis?
Telling you the title is but I can tell you what it was.
Okay, that's fine.
At that time, there was an awful lot of discussion about desalinization. So, in conjunction with my my thesis advisor, John Tilden, he said, "This is one thing that I'm sure you can do in the year that you have available." And what I did was to research all of the literature about desalinization and give a review of what that literature was talking about. And that's what my thesis was, desalinization, which I thought by this time would be in much greater use by this time. Not my thesis, but
desalinization worldwide, yes.
Yes.
But there's still quite a few desalinization plants in use, and it may ultimately be much greater.
Particularly in the Middle East.
In the Middle East, yes. We mentioned Vietnam here, so obviously you had Vietnam in the background, and you were commissioned, so you knew you were going to wind up going into the service. You did. I assume you didn't. By the time you graduated, Vietnam was still going on. You could have easily went to Vietnam. So,
and I did.
You did go to Vietnam. So now we'll go. Okay.
I first went to Germany.
I knew you were in Germany. Yes.
For there, the first thing I did was to go to the officers training school. You do the initial one, which is basic officers training. Then you move on to advanced, and the advanced officers training is once they put you into which branch, well, not branch, but within the Army, what grouping. So I was in Quartermaster Corps.
Okay.
And so did that, and then I was sent to the to Germany, to Mannheim, and to the Usurer Augmentation Readiness Group, which is a pre-positioned 7 divisions of armor equipment and engineering equipment, all of the type equipment that you would need to fight a war, because they said, how are we going to get our troops over there and in a position to fight quickly if we have another war?
In Europe.
In Europe.
In Europe, yes.
So that what they could do is we maintained all of that equipment. I was at the group headquarters, and we maintained in 6 locations all across Germany, where we had all of the equipment ready to go on very short notice. They'd fly the troops in with their regular weapons, their rifles or handguns, and everything else was there. Did that for 18 months, and then on my birthday, I got orders to go to Vietnam. So the orders were to go to the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare School in Fort Bragg and go into psychological operations training. So that's what I became trained for, and went to Vietnam in the 4th PsyOps group and spent my time there.
I can see the clear link between psychological training and mineral economics.
There you are.
So, I could see how that's your career path going forward. So,
well, it must have been, though. It may have been a little bit of when I was doing the basic training within the when I first went on active duty. We did we had exercise where you're in essence a force that's coming into a community, and somehow or other I had the job of being the person who wrote the speeches for the commanding officer to give in the town square, and maybe that was done well enough that they took note of that, and then I ended up in psychological operations. And it's not what people think it is.
We've had some discussions over a bourbon about this, I understand.
It's one of those things where you the things you're trying to do are to influence by giving people the information that they need to have. It can also be abused, as we all know, but our intent, as the U.S. Army is concerned, is that it's an influencing message that helps people understand what's happening.
Get the truth out.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. So, Drew, before we move on to all these other interesting aspects of your life, let me just ask a few more things about Vietnam. This is interesting. I'm learning about psychological warfare, and now I understand how you took SME by storm. You used psychological warfare techniques. We'll tie that back in.
Yeah, we'll see.
But you had mentioned when you and I were talking earlier about a radio system you had in Vietnam. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we had a 1,000,000-watt radio station and one frequency, and we handed out to any Vietnamese that wanted them, because it was a Vietnamese language, of course. Only had that one frequency, and then we broadcast a whole range of different things. News and other helpful things, as well as trying to convince Viet Cong, who might get a chance to listen to it, to come over to the back into the Vietnamese fold. But one of the interesting things about it, there were only about 3 or 4 of those type stations in the United States. And we had this set up in the Pleiku, which is the highlands, so that it would cover the entire country of Vietnam. And one time there were the engineering corps were doing some work around the site, and they had a dump truck there with its bed up, drove under a guy wire and pulled the whole thing down. So that was a kind of a disaster for us, and one thing that we had to then get another one and brought from the state and get states and get it put up.
Re-erected.
Yeah. I was stationed in Saigon, but our units were Nha Trang, which was on the coast, Da Nang, which was up on the border with North Vietnam, Bien Hoa, which was right outside Saigon, and Can Tho. And that was in the Delta. Mm-hmm. So we were spread all over, and I spent a lot of my time going all around to these various locations.
Interesting.
Never got into a Huey, however.
Never got into Huey.
I was always in cargo planes and stuff like that, but still traveled over the entire country.
Interesting. So this was the radio system that's famous for Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah, it could. I don't know.
It would probably be it.
Yeah,
fascinating. So somewhere in here, you got married, I believe, to your lovely old wife Dixie. Was that why you were still at Penn State, or?
Yeah, we got married in our my senior year.
Your senior year. Oh.
And so we went to Penn State. She worked at a private company that was doing work that required a security clearance. It was, I'm not even sure what she did, but she was an administrative assistant. That's what we call them today. Then they called her a secretary. But at any rate, and then, of course, we stayed on for the extra year after that.
Right. So she went to Germany with you, but I take it she didn't go to Vietnam with you. She stayed in Germany.
That's right. She did not, and the reason that she stayed, or that, no, wait a second. She got pregnant when we were in Birmingham, and she couldn't go over until the baby, our daughter, was, I think she had to be 12 weeks.
Ah.
So I went ahead, and then she came and joined me.
Interesting. So when you finished up your tour of duty in Vietnam, you mustered out of the service, I take it?
Yeah, that was so I was in 3 years.
3 years.
Because of that extra service to go to Vietnam.
So when you got out, did you, I assume Vulcan kept a position for you over that time. Did you give any thought? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, they had to. There was the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act of 1947,
right,
which required that anybody who was in the military had to be hired back if they so chose.
Yes.
And that you had to be treated as if you were working during that period that you were gone.
Okay.
So you still had the opportunity to negotiate on what you were going to do, etc. But by and large, they didn't have a choice. But good news was they wanted me back.
They wanted you back. So here you went to an interview because a PhD student said, "Come along with me."
Just for the heck,
just for the heck of it. And then after all this, you came back and you went right back to work for them.
Yeah, he went to work for Vulcan also.
He did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it worked out very well.
Very nice. So tell us a little bit about your career with Vulcan then. So you started with Vulcan, now with all this extensive psychological warfare background that you could utilize in your new career. But
well, I still was in market research, and market research was involved not only in the process of helping us to understand our markets better, but also to be involved in any acquisitions that Vulcan would be involved in. And they were growing at that point. They basically started out as a small business that the CEO of it and owner was the brother of the Postmaster General, and in oh my gosh, well, I'm drawing a blank on his name, Houston Blunt.
okay.
So Blunt was the Postmaster General, but anyway, that's extraneous to the other thing. But they were a growing company, and they were acquiring family-owned businesses.
Okay.
And so I was involved in the acquisition program a large part of the time that I was with them.
And that was well outside of Alabama, too. They were acquiring all through the South, weren't they?
Yeah, and not only that, they went into they acquired a aluminum scrap processing company that took scrap aluminum and produced aluminum doors and aluminum windows and all of that kind of thing, products that could be extruded.
Mm-hmm.
And they also purchased a detinning operation, which bought scrap tin cans and removed the tin from it, and then made stannous fluoride and other chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
So they were diversified in that way, in addition to having the aggregates companies. They bought what still amazes me. There is a quarry that they have that was first opened up during the Civil War and is still operating to this day.
Oh, and what state's that in?
That's in North Carolina.
North Carolina. Wow.
So it's amazing how long, and a big quarry. It supplies aggregate to the Raleigh-Durham research triangle,
mm-hmm.
As well as all of the area around it.
That may be the longest operating mine in the U.S.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's pretty impressive.
But it's a big one.
So did you stay in the aggregate side, or did you do some work in some of these other sides as well?
Well, I went to what they call the metals division. I forgot they also had a chemicals division that was located out in Wichita, Kansas. I never got involved with that, surprisingly.
Because you wanted to be a chemist.
That's right. But never got involved with that. I was with the aggregate business, and then I went to work for the division that was called our metals division. Worked with them for 4 years, and then back to the headquarters again. And then I got a little bit itchy, I guess, and I went to work for a waste management company. And the reason that happened was because they were interested in some technology that we were looking at out in California for recovering tin cans from garbage. And then they would sell it to us, and they'd make money, would reduce the amount of waste going into the landfill, and we got more
For your detinning
scrap
operation.
for the detinning operation.
Uh-huh.
So only worked for them about 18 months, and Vulcan came and asked me to come back, and I did. So that's where I finished out my career at that point. So I was also in one of their construction materials divisions that was headquartered in North Carolina. And
So you lived in North Carolina?
we lived in North Carolina for 4 years. That was very interesting because they were a really colorful family that started out really back before the Eisenhower interstate system started to be built. Excuse me. And they would go around, and back then permitting a quarry, essentially there wasn't any. They'd go, they'd find a farmer that had some acreage, they'd look and see if it had rock, then they'd contract with the farmer, open up a pit, supply the aggregate for a certain number of miles of interstate, and then move on.
Just move down the road.
Yep. And that's when aggregate was selling for $1.10 a ton. Very, very cheap. But they were making money.
So you worked for them for 4 years, then you went back to Birmingham again?
Yep.
So basically you lived in Birmingham most of the time.
Well, yeah, interrupted by, it was kind of 4 or 5 years at the metals division, which was in Sandusky, Ohio, located up on the on Lake Erie.
Okay.
And the time at they called it the Mideast division. That again about 4 years. We were in Chicago when I was with Waste Management. I think that's it. Otherwise, we were in
Birmingham.
In Birmingham.
With Vulcan. Interesting.
Yeah.
So just in total, how many years did you put in with Vulcan before you retired?
39.
So Drew, being a mineral economist is a unique field. I think that probably today there's not even today there's not that many universities that have that. So when you entered into that aspect with Vulcan, what did a mineral economist do, and how did you utilize those skills you learned? We'll answer that, then we'll see how that changed over that 39 years that you worked for Vulcan.
I'll have to think a little bit more about the changing, but
Okay.
but initially what I brought was an understanding of a broad range of mineral type operations, And because the company, as soon as I joined it, was looking at the coal industry as a diversification thing. They were already in the metals business. They had made that acquisition before, but they were still learning how to benefit from it. The metals business included, as I said, detinning and the aluminum business, processing aluminum scrap. They also had the chemical division. Did not get very much involved in that, but still there was that understanding that I could bring about these various types of industries that involved the mineral industry. And I got involved in permitting activities where we had to go before permitting boards and convince people to give us a permit. As I think I might have mentioned before, there was no permitting required for a lot of the operations that that Vulcan had, that they operated for specific projects. Find a farmer that had rock that was close to the surface, and they'd be in business.
Go away. Yeah.
But over time, when you started to have to get permitting done, get zoning changes to accept it, all of this, I think, the mineral economics program gave me some background to use and to help that, because I was involved in all of those types of operations. Not only the statistical aspect of determining how big a market was going to be there when we opened up, and how that would all work into the corporation. So that knowledge of the mineralogy, having to go through and learn how to identify different types of rock, it matters in construction business what kind of aggregate you've got, whether it's limestone or whether it's granite or igneous rock. We call all the igneous rock is granite, as most people when they talk about it, but
very different.
That don't know the difference.
Right, very different specifications. I understand.
So those were the types of elements, and then mineral economics program even got into financial aspects, and you had the marketing, sales, being able to identify to a degree that you needed to different types of aggregate, whether you were dealing with something that was soft, like a lot of limestones are, although they can be very hard too. Very hard also. But it gave that sort of background that very few people had coming out of college.
Fascinating. So just how long does it take to permit? I know it's a variety, but how long on the average do you think it takes to permit a quarry today compared to?
Even when I was there, we had some projects that took us 10 years to get fully permitted. And it's a wide variety of reasons why that might happen. Some of them are environmental. Some of them you just happen to run into an adjacent property owner that has the ability to make things very slow and painful.
Right.
But we were able, we operated quarries that were, the entrance to the quarry was across from a high school. We could and did operate in those kinds of conditions. We did not, it wasn't something that you had to have out where nobody could see you or hear you.
You didn't necessarily have an adverse relationship with those.
We had a very good relationship with them.
Yes.
We got to the point where we would not permit anything under, or not attempt to permit anything under about 400 acres.
Mm-hmm.
If we could get more than that, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
But 400 acres in most cases gave us enough longevity so that we could make significant money for it.
And
we had
enough buffer.
Yes. Well, and the strange thing is that we have, Vulcan had a lot of quarries that were nowhere close to anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then they built subdivisions all around it.
Yes.
So we went from a place where we were out in the wilderness, so to speak, to where we had to be extremely careful about noise and dust and traffic. And the interesting thing that we discovered in doing an analysis is that one of the biggest things they say, oh my God, all this truck traffic is going to be coming. It's going to make it very difficult. Well, it turned out, as we did some of the surveys, a normal suburban development with the way families grow, there are 2, 3, maybe 4 vehicles that are in one house. On top of that, you have people that are leaving there in the morning. But then if you have stay-at-home moms, they've got to go to the school, taking kids to school. They're out and back and forth. The traffic is heavier from a subdivision than it is from a quarry.
Understandable. As a mining engineer, I can appreciate that fully.
Yeah.
Let's talk for a few minutes about SME. So I see from your badge for this conference that you're a Legion of Honor member of SME. I am as well. So we've both been members over 50 years.
Uh-huh.
I think you've probably been a Legion of Honor member a little bit longer than me.
Well, 1965, when I was in my senior year and still wondering, I knew that I was going to go in the military, but I thought I better become a member of SME to give me the background, I guess, that I need to get a job in the mining industry when I get out of the military, because I did not expect to make it a career.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to serve, but I did not expect that I would stay. And like I say, and make a career of it.
So early on, you felt that SME brought value to you on trying to select a career, trying to get into the industry.
Absolutely.
So really, I'm not that far behind you because I joined as a student in, I think, 1970. So you were 60. So you have 5 years on me as a Legion of Honor member. So
and I think it worked out very well. And like I say, I was dedicated to that because I paid the dues for those 3 years when I was in the military because I wanted to maintain that history, if you will, with SME.
So did Mining Engineering Magazine make it to you every month in Germany?
You know what? No.
I kind of figured that was what it was. So your involvement with SME, so you joined and then you went to work for Vulcan. Was there a local section chapter that you were involved in then?
There was, and it was and is primarily a coal section. Coal mining is big in Alabama, and particularly in the Birmingham area.
Right.
And so I attended that meeting every time there was something to do with whatever Vulcan was interested in and whatever I was interested in. But they were very heavily oriented to coal, and so I didn't make it to those meetings as much as I would have liked to. Still, after I got really active in the in SME itself, when it would go periodically and talk up SME and try to get them to be more involved as a section in SME, but didn't. After that first early work on coal, well, I really didn't get involved very much.
So that's interesting. My involvement in SME really came about through the local section because I was really heavily involved in the local section. So you rather took a different path.
Yeah.
You got more involved in SME, the national side versus the section.
Yeah.
So how did that come about, Drew? That's interesting.
Well, the sessions that we have at the annual meeting. There were enough sessions that were aggregates oriented, and so that's how I started. I started coming, giving papers, as well as coming to listen to the papers. And the Vulcan as a whole for many years didn't think they needed a mining engineering. They said, well, most of what we're doing is moving dirt around, overburden, and so we can take another type of engineer,
Civil or whatever.
Civil
yes.
engineers, yeah, we'll hire them. They're cheaper anyway, and that was kind of their attitude. But that's changed.
Right.
They have gone. First of all, we operate underground. We've got an underground quarry in Lexington, which is under Krupp Arena.
Rupp Arena, right.
Rump.
Rump. Yeah.
See, you can tell I'm not a Kentucky fan. So, but that's an active underground operation that needs to have a mining engineer in there and not a civil engineer.
Correct.
So there's lots and lots of operations that we now have that are underground or in certain conditions that you need to have a mining engineer involved.
I know with those years you came to SME, while we may have had some programming here, we didn't have a whole lot. I think you were responsible really for elevating a lot of the interest in aggregates within SME at the annual meeting, weren't you? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I was, and Mike Karmis was one that was very active in trying to get that to happen. You know, looking back, I'm not sure what it was, why he had that interest in getting the aggregate industry much more heavily involved.
I think I remember that era too, and I think it was because they had graduates that started to show interest. All of a sudden,
that's what it was.
The aggregates companies were suddenly coming to Virginia Tech saying, we're interested in your people. So Mike realized we got to start programming for this.
Exactly. Now, I'm glad you reminded me of that, because that's exactly what happened. And they had 1 year where practically every one of their students went into the aggregate industry. Coal was down a little bit. They didn't need as many mining engineers. And so that's right. It was his foresight that really started to get me more involved. And that's how it happened. I think if it hadn't been for him as being the driving force, and the fact that the industry was changing, our aggregate industry was changing, that's what got the aggregate business involved with much more than it was.
So which division here at SME were you involved with?
Well, initially, I just kind of did whatever was interesting to me, and there was programming involved with it, but it did not have its own section.
Right, its
Right.
own home. Nobody took ownership. So.
That's right, and that's what we were doing, was building that.
Could you tell me how you went about that and how you found a home within SME for aggregates, knowing the importance of aggregates?
I think with Mike Karmis being sort of the catalyst, he opened a lot of doors and gave us opportunities, and I think that was I jumped in to work with him and through him to try to get this established. Mm-hmm. I was also involved at the time fairly heavily with the National Sand and Gravel Association. I got up to vice chairman with that before it merged with the National Stone Association. So it's now the National Stone, Sand and Gravel Association. But I was involved with both of those, both SME and NSSGA when it formed.
SGA then formed NSSGA.
Yeah,
right.
It was.
Well, however, yes.
Yeah, it was the National Sand and Gravel Association, the National Stone Association. Yeah. They merged and became National Stone, Sand and Gravel Association.
Yep.
So that's how we got NSSGA. So I was involved in both of those, very heavily involved in the National Sand and Gravel Association, and got to the level of vice chairman before the merger occurred. Mm-hmm.
So you were in a unique position, and I remember those days. So you were in a unique position to bring those people that were with you in the trade association, because that's what the National Sand and Gravel Association was, really a trade association with members. You were able to bring those people into SME with programming that you knew was appropriate.
That's right. So it was very hand in glove kind of thing, because there were so many common interests, even though NSSGA and the two prior separate operations were much more heavily involved with the government. Mm-hmm. And the political side of the whole thing.
Government relations side.
And they were fighting with the silica issue. Yes. That was very, very much on the minds of the regulatory agencies. So all of those things kind of gave that side of the perspective of the industry, and then SME gave the more technical side. And fortunately, our company recognized that having somebody involved with those companies, as I was, it gave them the opportunity to leverage what each of those organizations was doing best.
So ultimately, where did aggregates mining land within? Which division within SME is your current home?
Well, it's now become broader than that. For a while, we did have a separate section. There was just the aggregates.
Aggregates.
And now we're in the industrial minerals
as part of industrial minerals.
That's right. So it's and it fits.
It recognizes a broader description of industrial minerals.
That's right.
Yes.
So it also reflects, I think, the opportunity to bring together a larger group. And there are, in that industrial minerals division, there's a lot of overlap with the production of materials that are aggregate-based, rock-based, if you want to use that term, and so it fits.
Mm-hmm. So And this programming has continued, I know, because I look at the program and there's still a lot of aggregates programming that continues within this. So
they get into permitting, and we have, of course, things about operating plants that are served by a quarry, but producing lime, cement, and other materials that, other industrial minerals that, gypsum, etc.
So really, you were with Mike Karmis as a catalyst, you were actually you executed the plan to pull all this into SME.
Yeah, and not by myself, but
I understand, but you were
sure
a large part of that and got us to where we're at today.
And fortunately, Vulcan was very supportive of that.
Very good, very good. So as that occurred, so you obviously moved into an SME leadership path, which is interesting. So tell us how that came about.
You know, it's, what is it? One of the baseball guys say is success is just in showing up. Well, I did a lot of showing up, and there was enough guidance from people who wanted to see this happen that there was a lot of support there, and a lot of other people working to get the same thing to happen.
So, Drew, what awards have you gotten from the Society or from even the National Sand and Gravel Association over time, just out of curiosity? Do you remember?
Well, as I say, I got as high as the vice chairman of the National Sand and Gravel Association just before they merged. Mm-hmm. And so I never made it to the chairman. They didn't have presidents, they had chairmen.
Okay.
I don't know what the difference is, but and you know, right now I can't recall what awards I might have gotten with the Stone or the Sand and Gravel Association. Mm-hmm.
But with SME?
Pardon?
What about SME awards?
Well, SME, I have of course, the AIME honorary member. Mm-hmm. I also have the Distinguished Member Award. Also, I'm a Legion of Honor, meaning that I've been a member of SME for more than 50 years, and I think it's 56 or 7 years. And then there are a variety of ones donating to the foundation. John T. Boyd Award, which was for those people who have donated a fairly large amount of money
over $10,000.
Over 10,000. That's right. And as I say, I was chairman of a lot of committees in NSSGA, but I can't remember awards. I don't know why.
Oh, that's fine. So, well, let's not forget the Hardinge Award. Tell us a little bit about the Hardinge Award. I heard you had to reinforce a wall on your home to hang it.
It is a very big and heavy plaque. There is no question about that. I don't know what it's made of, but it's very impressive. It's got a prominent place on the wall. But that one I was very proud of because it is for exemplary service, and that's one of the big ones that I can always remember.
That one's for exemplary service in the field of industrial minerals, which we've just established includes aggregates. So very impressive.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting that I used to go to Central Appalachian meetings with Hal's son, who lived in Lexington years ago. So we used to travel back and forth. We had meetings in Charleston, West Virginia, and he used to travel with Joe Leonard, myself, and several other people, and Frank Gaddy, all these people that are famous. It was just interesting. I had the opportunity to know them back then.
Yeah.
But this is the award that Dave Kanagy says that we need a mini forklift up on the stage to pick it up.
And that's true.
So I didn't ask you about your AIME service. So since both you and I have served within AIME, we're proud of the association of SME with AIME, knowing that SME really is the foundation of AIME. We're the closest of all the member societies to our heart. So
in fact, when the transition was made to the 4 constituents of AIME, members, I think we call
member
them.
societies.
That's right. I was so AIME oriented, I thought, what happened to AIME? All of a sudden I'm SME, and I don't know what happened. But it took a while until I finally got an understanding of why what was happened.
How this occurred.
And in fact, when I became president, I thought there have to be some other people who were left out of the understanding of what went on. So one of my columns was on how did we get from where we were to where we are.
Where we are. Very good, very good. So you served as on the board of trustees of AIME too. So you had the opportunity all those years later still to give back to AIME through service on the board of trustees. Did you find that interesting?
Oh, it was very interesting. And a number of different issues because of the way the AIME was now an umbrella, so to speak, over these other
member
societies.
Yeah, member
societies. So it did give you a different perspective about how they interacted and how each are really a very important part of the other.
Neat.
Is the way I'd express it.
Okay, very interesting. So when you retired from Vulcan, I know you're still heavily involved in SME. You still come to SME every year. You attend all these sessions here that still pertain to aggregates. For a few years there, you did some consulting, didn't you?
I did. I never did a lot, but had a couple of interesting ones. A gentleman was interested in acquiring one of the nuclear power plants that was shut down in Alabama, and they needed to have some perspective about what the demand would be for electricity. And I used that as an opportunity to not only say what is going to be the demand for building and construction in the area that would be served by that, but also Aggregate and another company that I did a study for that was within that nuclear power plant generating area to build a quarry that would be able to serve by rail down to the coast of Alabama, Louisiana, etc. There's what's called geologically the fall line, where there's no aggregate except sand and gravel.
Right.
And so that area, if they need an aggregate rather than, or crushed aggregate, they have to be served by rail to get, or down the Mississippi, because this operation could also get on the Mississippi to go down to New Orleans, et cetera. So I had 2 different people at the same time trying to put together something. This I can't remember his name either, and I should. But he eventually did buy the plant, and I don't know whether he'll ever get it going back again or not.
But he owns it. Impressive.
Yeah.
So just you were talking about the fall line there. So in a different part of my career, I ran a bulk materials terminal south of New Orleans, and we brought aggregate in from Mexico. So you were railing it down that direction. We were bringing it up from Mexico and then offloading it to shore and then trucking it out.
And Vulcan operates a quarry on the Yucatan Peninsula, which is limestone. That is. They've got a couple of ships which then bring it to the coast of U.S.
Ah, I could have unloaded the Vulcan ship. I don't remember. It was too many years ago.
Well, one of the things I did when I was still with Vulcan was a study right after the first Gulf War. Vulcan was looking at establishing an operation that would supply aggregate to Kuwait. Kuwait had sand and gravel was their primary material, but it had sulfate mixed into it, which is not very good if you don't get it clean for making concrete. It can make make concrete very unstable.
It's corrosive to the concrete mix. Yep.
That's right. So there were operations in the Emirates, United Emirates, that were shipping aggregate, and what we wanted to do was to establish a port, an operation yard in Kuwait to supply aggregate. I worked on that for about a year, and the locals hung on to their materials, and we just never could get a big enough operation going. They went back to just what they were doing before, and so
what the interesting tie here is you were working with the El Turkey family. My son currently works for the El Turkey family in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, with running the rental car operation that they have there. So it's just interesting that we have this tie that comes back.
Yeah, and Vulcan also operated for quite a number of years in Saudi Arabia, and that's kind of what got us interested in saying, well, maybe we can start to establish more operations in there. But just too much politics and local, our partners in Kuwait just weren't able to get it done.
But you got to spend a little bit of time in the Middle East then.
I did, yeah. And I would travel back and forth between Kuwait and Dubai, and then travel through the UAE in order to go to two separate operations that we were going to bring via self-unloading ships that would unload in Kuwait.
Ah, interesting. I think we've talked a lot about your career. Let's just talk just for a few minutes here about your family. We've already mentioned your lovely wife, Dixie. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your family?
Well, yes. My oldest daughter is a nurse, and we are constantly amazed at how much she knows. She has diagnosed us with stuff that the doctors later on came around to saying, yeah, that's what it was, or we never did really get a good answer, but she came up with a good answer, and we were able to pursue that. Our second daughter has been a pharmaceutical rep, and she's started out in human resource management in a hospital, and then got to liking the earnings potential from a pharmaceutical rep, and that's what she's basically been doing for a long time. I shouldn't tell how old she is. It makes us seem old.
We're not old. Old's a state of mind.
That's right.
That's why this Legion of Honor thing should be renamed to sound younger.
Well, I don't know. It sounds impressive, though. And so anyway, and then we have 4 grandchildren. Oldest has a boy and a girl, and youngest has 2 girls. So one of them is a graduate from the University of Alabama. Got one in Auburn. The oldest daughter has one in Auburn. The youngest daughter has one that is graduating, or has graduated from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and she is getting ready. She's doing some working with doctors to start the process to go get her PA. And then we've got the grandson he was in chemistry, and when COVID came along, he said, I can't do this remote learning stuff. So now he's a assistant manager of a Starbucks. So we'll see where that goes. We might get him as a franchisee of Starbucks. And the youngest grandchild is at Ole Miss, and she enjoys it over there. That's been she's just a freshman, so she's got a little whiles to go. But she's going to do well. She's one of those that is very, very
focused.
She's very focused, and she really knows what she wants to do. Mm-hmm. And so we're looking forward to seeing how she progresses in Ole Miss.
But you never know where life's going to take her, because look at you. You wanted to be a chemist, but for that person who could look at you and assess and tell you where your future success was.
And she was right. She was right. I have never regretted it for 1 minute. And as I said earlier, one of my great, or I think I said it earlier, I've said it another time, one of my greatest regrets is never going back and telling her that she really made a difference in my life and got me into the mining industry, which has been very, very good to me.
Good, good. So is there anyone at SME that you would like to mention in particular that over these years, I know you mentioned Mike Karmis was really the catalyst that really got you heavily involved in the SME programming, and we really have you and Mike to thank for that, because that's SME's much better for it. But were there other people in SME that you think back, or I know Dr. Tilton at Penn State, you still kept in touch with him for quite a few years.
Yeah.
Are there other people that you want to mention?
Well, I was on the committee that hired Dave Kanagy. And that's a thing that I was very happy to be involved with and very proud of the outcome. And so there's a lot of people that claim credit for Dave Kanagy, but I'm one too.
That sounds good.
So that was an interesting process that we did in hiring him, but the fact that he was an executive director of one of the other member societies, that really helped him. He had so much knowledge about the mineral industry, even though it was the Iron and Steel Institute that he was working for.
Right.
He still had a lot of understanding of AIME, of SME and all of the operations, and he really knew how to turn it around, and it needed turning around at that point.
He knew Claude Crowley back when Claude ran SME, and because he was, so he had that knowledge, like you say, he was able to step in and move things forward. Very good. So I noticed you didn't mention that you have a son-in-law who's a gold miner.
Well, he's more a wannabe gold miner. He does produce, has produced some gold, and but he hasn't achieved the real thing yet.
He's an aspiring gold miner.
He's an aspiring gold miner. That's correct. But he spent a lot of time in Honduras, and there's a lot of alluvial
deposits,
gold deposits, and he even tried to here recently to process using leaching. And that didn't work out as well as he had hoped either, but he's given it a shot.
And so I should also mention, when you were talking about your detinning operation, I was thinking back to do you remember, since, of course, this may have gone out of vogue by the time you got your mineral economics degree, but do you remember what tin cans were also used for? To extract copper. They used to use tons of tin cans out in the West to, they'd have the copper solution and pull the copper out and replace the tin. So,
well, the other thing that metals, the same operation bought water meters, and they used to recover the copper and the components of water meters.
Out of water meters?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that was kind of a unique operation as well.
So this has been a fascinating discussion. Is there any advice that you'd like to give to young leaders that are the young leaders in our profession, or even the youth that are just coming into mining?
Well, this doesn't exactly answer your question immediately, but I am truly impressed by the number of women we have in mining now. That's such an unusual thing, and as always, women always make men better. So I'm looking forward to seeing them, their presence grow in the industry, and so I would have no reservations about recommending, if my daughters wanted to get into the mining industry. I think it's a great career, and it's one that obviously women can perform and do a great job. So if there's an advice here, it's that the industry is one that gives a good lifetime of earnings and being part of a community, so to speak, that I think you will always benefit from being a member of the mining industry.
Great. How about summing up your career? This is going to be an interesting one. Sum up your career in 2 or 3 words, Drew.
I can't say anything in 2 or 3 words.
That's why I was laughing when I asked that.
I don't know, except but it suits me because it's something that I really have enjoyed being a part of, and again, that's why I say I regret not being able to tell that counselor, you made a fantastic decision when you told me that you ought to take a look at mineral economics and being part of the mining industry.
Fabulous. So I can tell you that you've come a long way from being the first person to enter as a freshman into Penn at Penn State, you've come a long way. We've known each other for quite a few years with SME, within the SME family, and I've really enjoyed knowing you. I've learned a lot from you over the years.
Well, I've learned a lot from you too. That's
Hopefully
for sure.
Good stuff.
It is.
But this has been certainly a pleasure to interview you. You've had a fascinating career. I've really enjoyed the stories. I'm sure there were more stories that you and I have talked about over a bourbon that I'll kick myself when we stop this interview, because I'll say, why didn't I ask about this or that? But this was really a pleasure. I've enjoyed spending the time with you.
Well, and I'm getting so old now, I'm forgetting more than I knew. So there's some things I could have said that I just can't remember remember them like that, but I can remember them. So
I understand. Well, thank you very much for your willingness to share your story with AIME and SME.
Yeah.
And this has absolutely been a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank everyone that was part of the selection committee for selecting me. I've enjoyed it.
They made a great decision to select you. So
thank you.